Hey there, berries. Welcome to patch 11.7. This is a support tier list and should hopefully bring you up to date on what you should be trying to play in solo queue. In this patch, the main theme of this one in regarding supports is tank changes. A lot of different tanks are getting changed in this patch. Not really any mention of enchanters or mages. We'll have a look at the patch notes overall. And have a look and see what that entails, and then I'll take you over to my tier list. There are a few things that are changed around in there, so let's just bring you up to date of what's actually happening in this patch. So in terms of item changes, they're purely for like AD carries or towards the mid. So we have, the top lane actually is also getting slightly changed with the Trinity Force. So the Essence Reaver is probably the big one. So any AD champions that were using Essence Reaver, so like Ezreal in particular, first item he was picking that up, he's basically getting nerfed. So any supports that you were linking up with Ezreal in the past won't be as strong. So that could technically affect like things like Nami and Ezreal. They paired up quite nicely with Nami and Yuumi paired up nicely with Ezreal. You've also got tank supports that also technically been nerfed by this as well, because Ezreal was suitable for handling the lane 1v2 if left alone because of his safety. So now roaming is going to be slightly harder as well after he gets his first item, as he won't be having like that much extra AD. Like the 10 AD is pretty big. The cost is going down, but the AD hit there is pretty reasonable. Also, you've got the tanks as well are going to be a little bit tankier going into the fights. So the Dominique's cost increase is going up, but also the AD is going down. So any AD carry that was taking Dominique's to handle tanks is going to have a slightly harder time. So basically, generic AD nerf across the board for pretty much every single AD carry in the game if there's tanks on the other team. So yeah, it feels bad for them. Everfrost is also getting a big nerf. There are a lot of champions taking Everfrost, mainly to do with mid lane. I was just trying to think, like, I recently was playing Veigar, so with Everfrost, so that's a nerf to Veigar support, but that's something way down in the tier list that you probably shouldn't have been playing anyway. So once again, not really directly affecting the supports, and these item buff changes here, once again, not really affecting. One thing that is a noteworthy mention though in terms of item changes is this Turbo Chem tank. It's not technically listed as a nerf, but honestly it is. The movement speed is going down from 75 to 60, but if you do get caught that slow, it's going to go up from 40 to 50, but this is more of a nerf. I'm surprised it's counting as an item adjustment. I mean, yes, the stats have been reallocated, but I mean, so technically, so they are here and here. I don't know. Riot's reasoning about that. It's really weird. This is an item nerf for Turbo Chem tank for sure. So Udyrs and any other speedy jungler taking that item won't be as fast. Moving down into the champion direct nerfs, another slight Udyr nerf, another Hecarim nerf. Movement speed going down. Lots of jungles getting nerfed. You've got 2 AD carries and 3 support nerfs. So the 3 support nerfs are Rel, Thresh, Alistar. Minor nerfs, honestly, across the board. E-stun going down from 0.75 to 5 seconds on Rel. Thresh's Lantern is getting nerfed per point. So maybe I was doing Lantern max first. So it's probably going to be more like Q max first on Thresh, most likely. And then Alistar has receiving Q damage nerf per point, and the same with his E as well. But nothing too crazy. Yes, they're nerfs, but it's nothing too crazy. The Thresh one is probably the biggest of them all, just because it's going to affect those W shield max builds. I was doing it, like hitting 5 points in W by level 9. It was pretty powerful, and Riot has noticed that and nerfed it accordingly. Kind of sucks, but I can see why. It was quite kind of strong. Kaiser getting nerfed again. Ult and cooldown increased. Tristan base damage going down by 2. Nothing too crazy, but might end up saving your life in the lane phase. Should also have a slightly harder time last hitting. So most of these changes, actually, these champion nerfs are for the bot. Over 50%. No nerfs actually towards mid lane or top in terms of direct champion nerfs. Moving on to the champion buffs, we have a few here. Nothing really too dramatic for support. You got this Brom one, and that's it. Interestingly, in this, so you got the Rel, you got the Thresh, and you got the Alistar nerfs and the Brom buff, but Leona's remained unchanged. And honestly, she's kind of been the strongest, you know, support tank. So it's really strange that the unit isn't getting nerfed in this if Rel and Thresh and the Alistar are. So I'm a bit surprised by that one. I'm not sure why that is the case. But anyway, this Brom buff, the wall is going to be reduced in cooldown down from 10 at max down to 8. Also, the base cooldown has also been reduced by 2 seconds. So 2 seconds across the board, basically. And the R max knockup is going from 1 second to 2 seconds. It's getting increased by 0.25 seconds per point, basically. So it's going basically 1 second and then 1.5 and then to 2 at level 16 with 3 points in your ulti, as opposed to 1, 1.25 and then 1.5. Apart from that, nothing too crazy to mention. Ashe is getting a slight buff on her volley, which is kind of interesting. Varus is getting another buff, AD per level. Those two AD carries are getting buffs and more poke potentially in the bot lane. So like if you're looking at this, you know, with a step back, you're basically saying tanks are getting nerfed mostly across the board apart from Leona. The Brom change is helpful for him, but not too crazy because, you know, he's still going to be like, he's like the tank version of Janna. You're going to be preventing stuff, but you're going to still be vulnerable to like poke. And poke's being buffed with the Ashe and the Varus. Stuff like Brand and Zyra and Lux and things like that aren't being nerfed, and they're quite strong at the moment in solo queue. So basically AP mages and some form of enchanter poke has been nerfed. Buffed, sorry. Enchanters have been buffed, mages have been buffed indirectly this patch because all the tanks are being nerfed generally. So yeah, it's a strange patch. I know they're targeting pro play with these picks, the tank picks in particular, with MSI coming up around the corner, which is a global tournament happening in, I don't know when exactly, but it's very soon. So that's why they've nerfed these tanks, but maybe they're leaving up the option for potentially some more enchanters or mages to maybe be picked in pro play, because right now, looking at it overall, I think mage supports in particular, I think right now are going to be the strongest that they've ever been, but we'll have to keep a quite close eye on the situation over the coming patches coming, because they might decide to then switch over and hit the mage supports. But we'll have a look at the tier list. Let me just get over here into the actual tier list itself. So on the tier 5, nothing's changed from usual. The usual suspects down there. Let's just move up to the tier 4. Once again, usual suspects. I was considering moving like the Xerath up to tier 3. I've had some good games with him with Ludens, so I'm not too sure if I've been too harsh with this pick here specifically, but I'm generally happy with everything else in tier 4. I did move Swain down and Galio down from tier 3 to tier 4. I just feel like they're just not getting used at all in solo queue, honestly, and you know, there's a good reason why they're both not doing very well. I think Swain's got hit the most by the mythic item changes, and there's honestly no mythic item that does that well on him, so he's really struggling at the moment in terms of items. Moving on to tier 3, I don't want to hold you guys too much. So we've got Brom here. He was tier 3 last patch, but I decided, and so was the Rel, both were tier 3. The Rel did get nerfed, so she remains in tier 3, but it's not a big enough thing for her to go to tier 4. I think she's still pretty, like, you know, viable. The Brom buffers are nice. He got buffed a couple of patches ago as well. He's been buffed a few times this season already, but I don't feel like it's enough to push him into tier 2. He's getting there for sure. He's like almost there, it feels like. Maybe evolution becomes meta bot lane again. This would be a pretty easy pick. But But for now, I'm happy where he is at tier 3. I think he's a strong tier 3 pick. Seraphine, still tier 3. There is a change that is not documented actually on the Mark Yetters thing, but they have fixed a bug. If I can bring that up for you. Here's the bug list. So Seraphine can no longer trigger Moonstone. You guys can see that, right? Yeah. No longer trigger Moonstone's Renewer with her notes, basically. So there was a bug where Seraphine was proccing the Moonstone Pendant too often, and it was to do with her notes. So whatever that was causing that to do that, they basically fixed it. So she's not going to be proccing Moonstone nowhere near, well, in theory, nowhere near as much as she should be. So yeah, and I think there was a similar bug apparently with Karma's E, in regards of not triggering Moonstone. So Karma's E should trigger Moonstone a little bit more apparently. But just to give you guys a heads up in the bug notes, because people don't really read those anyway. So Seraphine technically getting nerfed this patch as well, but I still feel like her ult potential is still massive. It's the only reason why she's tier 3. That ult button is huge in team fights and can change fights, but I feel like she struggles quite a lot until that point. Soraka I've moved down from tier 2 to tier 3. I think she's still a decent pick in the lower ELOs. I just think right now in like Plat Plus she's extremely struggling right now. But if you are adamant about playing Soraka, particularly if you're gold minus and you really like playing Soraka, I think you can still do that. Particularly now that the tanks have been nerfed a little bit, so the poking is still coming through there. I just feel like she's just still falling behind just a little bit too much. Anyone else there I really want to particularly mention? Not really. Nautilus is one of the other tanks, and Blitzcrank, those two haven't been nerfed this patch, but they're still kind of lacking behind anyway. I think in terms of like tank options, you got the clear Leona pick. She's been tier 1 forever, and spoiler, she is tier 1 still. And then everyone else is just drifting behind, it feels like. Yeah, it's very, very strange how they're not nerfing Leona this patch. I'm not sure the justification for that in terms of like why they're nerfing everything else, but I don't know. With a lot of Leona bans, I'm assuming, coming in champion selection soon. Tier 2, we kept the Alistair in there, and we did move the Thresh down from tier 1 to tier 2 because of the Lantern nerf affecting his early start quite a bit. I did like the shield maxing build. I thought it was pretty strong, but now I'm probably going to have to go back down to Q. There was just a lot of ease of use with just maxing Lantern, because even if you weren't landing the hooks, the Lantern shield was like a huge backup. Like if you were super scuffed and having a bad landing phase in terms of engaging, at least you could always disengage and generally keep your team alive. So you weren't exactly losing anything, but now you will be, because you're going to want to put those points back into Q. You've got no safety net, or at least not as much of one. So yeah, you're a little bit at more risk of playing Thresh now. Anyone else that I really want to particularly mention? There's a lot of champions here that have stayed the same here in the tier 2. Alistair, those damage nerfs obviously aren't particularly great for him, but you're not really taking Alistair for the damage numbers. If they had nerfed like his increased the cooldowns of his Q or W or something like that, then I could see him slipping away into tier 3 potentially. But I think his engage is still going to be really, really good. You got your roam potential there, and the team fight crowd control is what you're looking for. So yeah, it kind of sucks that the damage has been down a little bit, but it's fine, honestly, if you want the Alistair for the crowd control and roaming factor. Lux and Zyra are still two solid tier 2 picks, especially with like Rel getting nerfed a little bit and the Alistair nerf getting down a little bit. You're going to survive potentially more often against those tank supports, even if you get counterpicked with those. So Lux and Zyra still looking pretty good, and Ashe is getting buffed and Varus is getting buffed again, so we're probably going to start seeing some more poke ADs in the bot lane, and those two champions do pretty well with poke AD carries. And then moving up to tier 1, we have thinned out this list a little bit. If I was correct, we did have like 6 champions up here last patch, but it has been narrowed down to 4. Leona the clear number 1, as I mentioned before, because for some reason she's not getting nerfed, which is very interesting. Next week, next patch, we might end up seeing a Leona nerf. We'll have to keep an eye on that and see. But Janna's still tier 1. You know, if anyone does pick a tank, you know, Leona is included in that. Like, Janna is the one to go to disengage if you are interested in playing an enchanter still. So the queen of disengage right there. Yumi, even though Ezreal is getting nerfed, honestly, Yumi Ezreal is decent in lane, but it's not the main reason why you should be taking Yumi. You're always looking for that jungler pick that is enabling you. I will say though, Udyr and Hecarim have and will be receiving those nerfs soon, so Yumi's power goes down again a little bit, but I still think she's going to be incredibly strong. I do feel like Yumi has lost a little bit of power, 100%, but also, you know, the tanks have been nerfed as well, so, you know, even if you get caught off by like the Rel or the Alistair, you know, they're going to be doing a little bit less with this change. So yeah, she's slightly weaker, but you know, her counters are also slightly weaker, so she's having a slightly easier laning phase. I think that's going to be more of the trade-off. The jungler is not going to be as strong, but the laning phase is going to be easier. And then you got the Brand. Probably the most crazy thing, I think Brand is absolutely disgusting. If you are in the mentality of you want to solo carry games, Brand with the Ludens build that I've done recently is absolutely disgusting. Riot has not nerfed it this patch as I thought they would do, because he is abusing it like crazy, and they're not nerfing it. So, you know, if you want quick LP, if you want it hot and fast right now, Brand is the pick to do right now. Be really interesting to see in the next couple of patches to see if they do anything about it. But Brand at the moment is absolutely disgusting, and our tanks, his main weakness was hard engage, and some of those tanks are being nerfed. You got a free pass, I think, for you know, a bunch of LP before they recognize that, because Brand is definitely a problem at the moment and really hard to deal with. If you don't instantly engage against the Brand, you're probably going to be in for a bad time. So yeah, there's a bit of a question about that one. So question mark pings all around for the Riot's support balancing team. They're kind of running it down a little bit. I think they're focusing too much on pro play and forgetting a bit about solo queue. But you know, Riot, you know, once you get near these tournaments, they kind of honestly tunnel vision a little bit too much for pro play. So solo queue is open. They've opened up solo queue. So yeah, you abuse the Brand and the Leona in particular for solo queue at the moment. It's yeah, should be good. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the tier list. I kept it short and sweet for you guys because, you know, there wasn't too much craziness going on for this one. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the tier list. Hope it helps you out for 11.7. Don't forget to stay very awesome. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave them down below or pay a visit over at the live stream at twitch.tv/Bizzleberry. See you soon.